cold in the U.S., the conversation around what mask to wear is changing too.
It's not that cloth masks don't work. They do block a lot of the virus, but they don't block all of it. So if you're in these indoor spaces, I would wear a, quote, stronger mask.
That is tonight on Marketplace. Just a moment on WNYC. We'll be back with All Things Considered at 7, and then join us at 8 for America Are We Ready with Brian Lair. It's 6:30.
WNYC is supported by Hulu, presenting The United States versus Billie Holiday, directed by Lee Daniels and starring Andra Day as legendary jazz musician Billie Holiday. Premiering on Hulu February 26th. Awards eligible in all categories.
This is WNYC 93.9 FM and AM 820. NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Marketplace is supported by Circle CI, a continuous integration and delivery platform that helps software teams go from idea to product at scale. Learn more at circleci.com.
Today's program is brought to you by the letters GME, AMC, BB, and NOK. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Progressive Insurance with the Name Your Price tool, offering a range of coverage and price options to choose from. Now that's Progressive. More at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. And by Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, where research on how cancer cells get oxygen led to development of kidney cancer drugs and more. danafarber.org/everywhere.
In Los Angeles, I'm Kai Risdell. It is Thursday today, everybody, the 28th day of January. Good as always to have you along. We have now, it seems, entered the lawsuit phase of the GameStop frenzy. That is ticker symbol GME, by the way. As the volatility in that company's shares and those of AMC, the movie chain, BlackBerry, BB, and Nokia, NOK, continue to pace this morning, Robinhood, the platform of choice for a lot of what's been happening, and some other retail brokerage firms as well, started restricting trading on those shares. Lawyers have gotten involved, and what has been started with these trades is nowhere near over. But we thought it might be a good idea to recap what we know, look at why it's happening, and try to figure out where it might lead. Marketplace's Sabri Benishore is going to do that for us, all in 2 minutes. Here you go.
So GameStop, the video game store, has not been doing so well. You've got some big investors who are shorting the stock, meaning they are betting the stock is going to go down. Like they will make money if it goes down.
Hedge funds and other investors and other traders that believe that GameStop is overvalued because it's a brick and mortar chain.
John Jacobs directs Georgetown Center for Financial Markets and Policy. And then you've got people who are betting GameStop stock is going to go up. And a lot of these people are non-Wall Street people.
Lots of small day traders who are coming to the marketplace, sometimes for the first time.
These two groups are fighting. Millions of small day traders are chatting with each other on Reddit, egging each other on to buy more. Hold on to the stock. Don't let its value drop. Make those Wall Street guys lose their bet.
That it's a popular movement rising against big Wall Street interests.
Guillaume Keller is one of those day traders on Reddit. He's actually based in Paris. And for him, it's become something more than winning a bet over a random video game store.
The retaliation around the unbridled Wall Street greed for the past 20 years.
Keller doesn't actually mind losing a little bit of money in the end if it costs a Wall Street hedge fund a lot, which it has. People like Keller have driven GameStop shares up dramatically, and the higher they go, the more a short-selling hedge fund loses. James Angel is an associate professor of finance at Georgetown.
Now, we've seen these kind of spikes in prices before, and we'll see them again. And usually when they occur, they end badly.
And badly, as in the price eventually comes tumbling back down. And small traders who had invested their savings, hoping to make a quick buck, might lose out. But finance author Zachary Karabell says maybe we shouldn't assume that retail traders don't know what they're doing.
Maybe they do realize they might lose money. Maybe they said, if I lose $500 doing this, but I could make $5,000, I'll take that risk.
And maybe for them it's worth it. In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore for Marketplace.
The tug of war between the big hedge funds and the retail investors on Reddit aside, the major indices got back part of what they lost yesterday in the session today, which is, when you think about it, kind of what that tug of war is about, isn't it? We'll have the details when we do the numbers. We got a glimpse today, courtesy of a report from the market research firm Coresight Research, of what this economy is going to look like post-pandemic. Major retailers, the report says, are expected to close 10,000 stores this year. That is up 14% from the year just ended. But at the same time, more than 3,300 new stores opened last year, and Coresight predicts another 4,000 will open this year. Marketplace's Kimberly Adams has that one.
The types of stores that shut down in the pandemic include lots of footwear, clothing, and accessory shops, according to Coresight Research. The types of retail that opened, discount outlets like dollar stores. Industries that cater to certain pandemic needs also did all right.
I believe the housewares category as all overall in the country has seen tremendous growth from New York to the West Coast.
Natasha Ament runs the kitchen supply store Whisk in New York. Her business did better than she expected in 2020. Now, as restrictions start to lift,
I'm hopeful that people will keep up their love for cooking and want to spend their money at a store like ours.
Businesses small and large are trying to game out which pandemic changes will be permanent. Constance Hunter, chief economist at KPMG, says at least for those who are on the upside of the K-shaped recovery,
and I do think this pent-up savings is going to lead to higher consumption than we would normally expect once we get to the other side of the pandemic.
And for businesses that can hold on until then, there could be a business boom. Nicole Marquis owns Hip City Veg, a chain of fast casual restaurants around Philadelphia and Washington, D.C.
By the end of the pandemic, there may be more opportunity and space to grow and innovate. We're already looking at 3 new locations.
Because she expects that once people can go out again, those with the ability to spend will spend a lot. In Washington, I'm Kimberly Adams for Marketplace.
American Airlines and Southwest reported quarterly and past year profits today, and by profits, I mean not profits. To quote American's CEO Doug Parker, the most challenging year in our company's history. A net loss for the year of $8.9 billion for American, $3.1 billion for Southwest. But with vaccines starting to roll out both here and elsewhere, albeit slowly, we asked Marketplace's Samantha Fields to look into what 2021 might look like for the airlines.
When the pandemic first started, air travel dropped more than 95%. And though it has come back some, Richard Abulafia, an aviation analyst at Teal Group, says 2020 for airlines
was the worst year they faced pretty much in the history of the jet age.
Airlines and analysts expect 2021 will be better. But how much better really hinges on the vaccine rollout, says Shoykit Chaudhry at the University of California, Berkeley.
When vaccines came out, there was a lot of optimism and excitement that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and 2021 would mark this rapid era of strong recovery.
That excitement has already receded, in part because of how slow the vaccine rollout has been so far, says Edward Russell, who covers the industry for Skift and Airline Weekly.
The high infection rates that we have seen over the last few months, coupled with the new administration that, probably rightfully wants to implement new restrictions to slow the spread, has really tempered the outlook.
Including the new requirement that everyone flying in from abroad now has to show proof of a negative COVID test. Industry analyst Robert Mann says all those factors will likely mean a slower than expected recovery for air travel in the first half of this year. But
the back end of 2021, I think under all realistic scenarios, should look a lot better than we initially planned.
For domestic air travel anyway. A real return to international travel, Mann says, could still be another year or more away. I'm Samantha Fields for Marketplace.
Tomorrow morning, real early, might I recommend the Marketplace Morning Report. David Brancaccio and the gang, everything you need to know to start your business day. President Biden has asked Americans to mask up for 100 days. He has also signed an order requiring face coverings on federal property. But the kind of and the quality of masks that are widely available varies pretty widely. And now, with worries about more transmissible variants, experts are telling people to wear better masks, especially the workers who face the highest risks. From the Workplace Culture Desk, Marketplace's Megan McCarty-Carino is on that one.
Maishika Ronquillo has a whole laundry basket of cloth masks of every stripe and fabric.
I lose them like all the time. So it's like you get that one mask and you're just like, oh, this is so cool. And then, you lose it.
She's got masks emblazoned with the words Black Lives Matter and United We Stand.
Just anything positive.
Ronquillo works part-time at a fast food restaurant in Los Angeles, one of the worst hotspots in the country. Sometimes she gets disposable paper masks at work, but supplies often run low, so she wears her own cloth one. It's a big difference from her other job as a home healthcare aide for 2 older patients.
They have everything right at the front door. As soon as I walk in, I change for my cloth mask. They have KN95 masks.
Those filter at least 95% of small airborne particles, one of the primary drivers of COVID-19 transmission. Ronquillo says several coworkers at the restaurant have gotten sick, and she worries about bringing the virus home where she lives with 5 family members, including her mom.
I'm very concerned because sometimes there's 10 to 15 people in the space at work. You're literally side by side.
As the virus has become more pervasive and potentially more transmissible, the risk multiplies, says Monica Gandhi, an infectious disease doctor at UC San Francisco. That increased risk means workers need increased protection.
It's not that cloth masks don't work, actually. They do block a lot of the virus, but they don't block all of it. So if you're in these indoor spaces, I would wear a, quote, stronger mask.
Disposable N95 respirators are still best reserved for healthcare workers, she says, but there are better alternatives than cloth, and Gandhi worries that message has gotten a little lost.
The tale of masks is a very woeful one in the United States.
In the earliest days of the pandemic, we had officials like the Surgeon General, Jerome Adams, saying not to wear them.
Masks do not work for the general public in preventing them from getting coronavirus.
Then supplies were short, so it was all about DIY.
Or you can make a face covering out of an old t-shirt. Fold it to the middle.
And the message that N95s are only for healthcare workers and everyone else can just use whatever has kind of stuck, says Gandhi.
It was a blunt way of thinking, and it wasn't nuanced, and it wasn't correct.
Any mask is better than no mask, but there's kind of like a hierarchy of different solutions.
Devabhaktini Sri Krishna works in patient education. He and 2 Harvard Medical School partners have analyzed all the available options. The best, he says, is a reusable elastomeric N95. That kind that makes you look like Darth Vader.
They're not exactly the most stylish things.
But they're widely available, unlike disposable N95s. They fit better, are more comfortable, and provide the same level of protection. But not everyone is going to want to wear something so bulky. So as virus cases have mounted in Los Angeles, fast food worker Maishika Ronquillo has improvised her own solution, doubling up.
Most of the time I'll have on a cloth mask that comes down my neck, and then I'll put another mask over that.
Monica Gandhi at UC San Francisco says the best combination is a standard surgical mask layered with a washable cloth mask that provides almost equal protection to an N95 without looking like you've gone to the dark side. I'm Megan McCarty-Carino for Marketplace.
Coming up.
You hit your head on the plants is just not what I wanted it to be.
Some ideas are better just left as ideas, right? First, though, let's do the numbers. Dow Industrial's up 300 points today, almost 1%, 30,603. The NASDAQ rose almost 67 points, 0.5%, 13,337. The S&P 500 jumped nearly 37 points, almost 1%, 3,787. Those roller coaster stocks that Sabri was talking about up at the top of the program, companies caught between hedge fund short sellers and Redditors. GameStop ended the day down 44%, AMC down 56%, BlackBerry, remember Blackberries, by the way, dropped 40%, 40%. Bond prices fell as well. Yield on the 10-year Treasury note, 1.04%. You're listening to Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by HVR, empowering organizations to realize their full potential with continuous high-volume data movement between cloud-based and on-premise systems. Fresh data where you need it. More at hvr-software.com. And by Merrill. Merrill Edge Self-Directed Investing has tools to help clients find answers to questions. More at merrilledge.com/withinreach. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer. And by C3.ai. C3.ai software enables organizations to use artificial intelligence at enterprise scale, solving previously unsolvable business problems. Learn more at C3.ai.
WNYC supporters include Shepherd Mullen, a global law firm with 900 lawyers handling corporate and employment matters, key litigation, IP, and complex financial transactions for companies in New York and beyond. More at shepherdmullen.com.
The first 100 days of a new presidency are a time for America to reset our national agenda. This is Brian Lehrer. Join me, my guests, and listeners from around the country for live national call-in shows Thursday evenings for the first 100 days. How will we all get vaccinated, create jobs, fight racism, and restore our democracy? America, are we ready for the first 100 days? Tonight at 8 on WNYC.
You're listening to Marketplace on WNYC. In the 7 o'clock hour of All Things Considered, day traders are taking down Wall Street hedge funds by bidding up GameStop's stock price. We'll hear a lot more about that story and more at 7 o'clock. Stay tuned.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Ryssdal. As I was saying earlier, one of the companies caught up in the volatility of the past week or so is AMC Entertainment, the beleaguered movie theater chain that until recently wasn't sure it was going to make it out the other end of this pandemic. Out in the real economy, meantime, there are still some real challenges for movie theaters, including the nonprofit Belcourt Theater in Nashville, Tennessee, which closed in the spring, opened back up in November, and then closed back down again at New Year's. The Belcourt's executive director, Stephanie Silverman, is one of the 10 people we have been following in our series about the American labor force. It's called The United States of Work. Hey, Stephanie, it's Kai. How are you?
Hey, Kai, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You rolling on your end?
I am rolling.
All right, good. We're just going to keep it here. We're going to use this as the hellos. Standard first question with a caveat here. How's business given that you've been closed since January the 1st?
The movie ticket business is fairly slow, I will say. Although, we got some great virtual film streaming and people are watching them. And then this weekend, we're rebooting our drive-in because the Belcourt is a satellite site for the Sundance Film Festival this year. So people will be outside in January in Nashville, which is not really that warm. Yeah. But it'll be fun to see audiences again.
Is being a Sundance satellite thing, does that come with some cachet for you at the Belcourt?
They gave us some support to help, hire people for panels and some other stuff. The ticket sales that we are part of our film offerings, we do get to keep the revenue from those. So that's super helpful for us, for sure.
All right. To the brass tacks then. I mean, you're trying to get by. You can't really do what you do for a business. What are you going to do?
Well, we are super excited about this, about the last federal funding bill, which had what was once known as the Save Our Stages program in it. It's now called the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. Mm-hmm. The application hasn't opened yet, and it's been about a month, but if that happens, I think it really will allow us to get through the next several months to the point where we are seeing much more widespread vaccination. It's pretty clear that that is the piece that people are waiting on to feel comfortable about coming back into public spaces.
Yeah, for sure. It was pretty clear cut to you that after being open for a minute, as we talked about last time you were on around Thanksgiving, you kind of had to close it down. I mean, there was no keeping it open, right?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers got so severe. It feels a little bit like we're back into the unknown days of last year as we approach the year mark of being closed.
Which is kind of unbelievable. We talked a lot in our first couple of conversations during the pandemic about your staff and the care you were trying to take with them, acknowledging that a lot of them are low-wage workers to begin with, and this is a gig economy for a lot of them. Have you been able to keep paying them?
Yeah, well, we had a minute where we had to furlough some. We were able to bring a ton of them back on when we reopened. And right now, they're still on the payroll. We're keeping them paid. And we all feel really committed to doing that for as long as fiscally possible. I mean, I guess if we don't pay them, they do not get enough money through other federal programs to be able to pay their rent, pay their utility bills, and buy food. Just the really bottom line basics.
All right, so let's this is kind of an awkward turn, but let's do it anyway. Let's assume in a number of months that is somewhere in the single digits, fingers crossed, the vaccine is out, you are able to open up again. The movie industry has changed. It just has, right? And this whole streaming thing is not going away. Releases to online at the same time they're in theaters is not going away. You worried about the Belcourt in its, short to medium term future?
I hope this isn't Pollyanna-ish, but I'm not.
Okay.
I really think that once people feel like they can be out in the world again, they will want to be out in the world again. And while streaming is a reality, it's not communal. And communal still matters, whether it is dining in a restaurant or whether gathering in the parks with a ton of people around, going to festivals or watching a movie in a theater. I really think that that's going to matter in the long term.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope you're right. Stephanie Silverman is the executive director of the Belcourt Theater. They are in Nashville, Tennessee. Talk to you soon, huh?
Thanks, Kai. Take care.
You too. You spend more time at home, as a whole lot of people have been doing for going on a year now. You notice things that need to be fixed or changed or improved. What nagged at you before screams at you now. The Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard figures we collectively spent $340 billion on home improvement and repair last year, about 3.5% more than we did in 2019. Sadly, we have no statistics on how many of us actually know what we're doing. But for the latest installment of our series, Adventures in Housing, Marketplace's Amy Scott does take a look at remodeler's remorse.
Jackie DeShane has owned her house near Toronto for 7 years, and there's this one thing that's always bugged her. There was a bulkhead above the kitchen cabinets that she suspected was just empty space behind drywall.
My husband and I are both very tall, and we've often thought that that was space we could use for storage, more cupboards, whatever.
Then one Sunday morning back in April, a few weeks into the first lockdown,
we were just sitting having our coffee, looking at it, thinking, well, if we just stick a little hole in the end here that we won't really notice, we could find out if we're right.
It took 6 holes, but they were right. And a couple weeks later, after she'd gone back to the office, Jackie came home one day to find that her husband had ripped the whole thing out, down to the studs. It's been that way ever since.
Now we're in the kitchen. You can see it's up here behind me.
Jackie shows me on Zoom. There's a 6-foot stretch of missing wall and ceiling above the cabinets. You can see the pink insulation behind plastic sheeting.
So you like our kitchen, huh?
That would be Mike Wood, Jackie's husband and erstwhile demolition expert.
And so here we sit. However many months later, one hole turning into another hole has turned into the domino of, well, if we repair this drywall area, now we kind of have to do the whole kitchen.
Jackie and Mike have shelled out $0 on this particular project so far, but all this time at home has brought out the inner home improver in a lot of us, and near record spending. Nick Pereira lives in Guerneville in Northern California. With the money he and his husband Sam aren't spending on travel, they removed a giant redwood that was threatening their foundation and bought some new appliances, and Sam dropped $300 on 2 10-by-10-foot tents for outdoor entertaining.
Except he forgot to measure the space. And so we have a lot of outdoor area, but none of it was actually 10 by 10. So the tents, neither of the tents actually fit.
Shipping them back would have cost about $50. So they sort of wedged one of them in. The other they'll donate to a local restaurant. Space has also proved challenging for Jennifer Harrison in Chicago. Her entire studio apartment could probably fit in one of those tents. So she kept her improvements small and put some plants on the windowsill.
When we were stuck indoors all day, I thought that plants would make it a little more bearable as I work from home. And when you live by yourself, it's just nice to have a living thing with you.
And it was nice until the weather got cold and she realized that her baseboard heater was right below her growing nursery.
So they were getting too cold from the window and too hot from underneath and just like shriveling up.
This is where she entered the danger zone, Pinterest. Seduced by glamour shots of hanging gardens, she took an old clothing rack, got 10 macrame plant holders, and now she shares her tiny studio with a rolling jungle.
So it's either blocking my fridge, blocking my dishwasher, blocking my bed. If it's right against the couch, you hit your head on the plants. Like it's every single part of it is just not what I wanted it to be.
Now she's just waiting for spring when the heat shuts off. Virginia Maher in Mountain House, California knows something about waiting. She saved for nearly 2 years to remodel her kitchen. Finally, in August, she hired a contractor through a big home improvement chain. The $30,000 job
was supposed to be completed absolutely no later than October 26th.
The work didn't even start until November. Contractors are in high demand, and the pandemic has created all kinds of delays. Virginia's family of 7 spent Thanksgiving without a sink or a stove.
Now we're at the end of January, and they are hoping to finish within the next month or so.
As for Jackie and Mike, who ripped out part of their kitchen and then just stopped, they're not in a hurry to finish. They're both back at work now, and they've kind of got that thing where if you live with something long enough, you don't really see it anymore. I'm Amy Scott for Marketplace.
Yeah, I feel that. I'll tell you what. We do have some pictures of some of the improvements that Amy was telling us about at marketplace.org, of course. And while you're there, tell us about your adventure in housing, would you? This final note on the way out today, I want to make real sure this doesn't get lost in all the stock market hullabaloo, which, to be clear, is about more than just the stock market. But anyway, today is Thursday, which regular listeners know means we got first-time claims for unemployment this morning. As we sit here approaching the 11th month of this pandemic, 847,000 people lost their jobs last week. Lower than the past couple of weeks, yes, but still staggeringly high.
Marketplace is supported by X-Chair, maker of the X2 home office chair with dynamic variable lumbar support, donating to Gladstone Research Institute to fight COVID-19 at xchair.com. And by Cabot Creamery, a farm family cooperative since 1919, crafting traditional cheddar cheese, offering comfort recipes and educational resources at cabotcheese.coop. And by NetSuite, helping businesses get control over financials, HR, inventory, and more. Over 24,000 companies use NetSuite by Oracle. Product tours at netsuite.com/publicradio.
All right, we got to go, but here is your Thursday moment of economic context. Kind of picks up on the final, actually. We got our first look at economic growth for the fourth quarter of last year and all of 2020 this morning, now that it's thankfully in the rearview mirror. The good news is that from October to New Year's, the economy grew at an annualized rate, and remember, we have been over that, an annualized rate of 4%, which is great. But for all of 2020, actually, the economy shrank, contracted is the word economists like to use, 3.5%. That is the worst performance since the Second World War. Okay, we're going. Amir Bibawi, Siobhan Brett, John Buckley, Eve Epstein, John Gordon, Kat Green, Rick Carr, and Betsy Streisand are the Marketplace editing staff. I'm Kai Ryssdal. We will see you tomorrow, everybody. This is APM.